Well, hello, and we've reached the 31st of January, and what a fantastic difference. So I'm just enjoying soaking up the sun's rays. Life is very much following the pattern which is shown in nature. Consider the conditions, which is generally winter, when a seed will begin to germinate and grow. It's always in the cold, it's always in the darkness. But from that comes the growth, the new life, and then the flowering and the produce of its fruit or its crop. So this video is about depression, and it's the first of a series of videos in which I'm going to explain as what we perceive as something very negative is actually the opposite. In the same way that a seed will spring to life in spring, it's come out of the darkness, it's come out of the cold, it starts in the darkness and it roots and it shoots. Before we get to that, I need to provide a little sort of backstory, and I can only call this divine timing. So I refer you to a recent Archaix video where the guest was Larry Pahl. Now, Jason has identified that the Great Pyramid of Giza is connected with the number 138. All the internal measurements reflect that. Now, Larry Pahl, what he's brought to the table is the external measurements. So in relation of the Great Giza to other structures, other pyramids, is reflecting the 792. So you've got the Phoenix event, and you've got the Nemesis, or if you prefer to call it that, the Nibiru. But obviously that's been hijacked by Zecharia Sitchin. So I'm going to go with the Nemesis X. That is to do with the external. Now, if we internalize this, the Kundalini rising, or the rising of the Christ consciousness, is your own internal Phoenix rising. Remember that the external is a reflection. Some of those reflections are guiding you, some of those reflections are showing you the opposite, how not to be. So sometimes we get what we would class as very obnoxious people coming into our lives, but we can learn a lot from those. If you look at the pattern of your own life, the ones that you would class as your adversaries have helped shape you in your life experience as to where you are now. This also this also is shown in the internal in such a thing as depression. How can depression be a good thing, you might ask? Well, first off, we can look at the etymology. I'm going to have to pause for a moment. Right, I'm back. So, how can depression be a good thing? Well, the first thing to do is look at the etymology. It is basically saying deep rest. The body will always tell on the mind, so the external will be felt internally. And it came to me the other day that when I sit sort of in, say, contemplation or meditation, I'm doing exactly the same action as when I had the height of depression, which I believe was the year 2014. I distinctly remember waking up on a particular day, sitting on the side of the bed, pretty much in this same position like I am now, as it were, and that feeling of, what is the point of it all? What, there seems no reason to live. What the depression is, it's putting you into a state of deep rest. It's depressing the eye on, because it's saying go internally, don't project out with the mind's eye until you've done that internal work. So what the depression does, it starts stripping away all the attachments. In terms of food, it will be like losing your taste buds, so everything just tastes bland and like cardboard. And you start going through this change, and I'm talking from a personal experience of going through this, and now from a position after checking with Source and seeing how everything that we perceive as negative is actually positive, which reminds me, and it's also deliberate, the title of this video, because it is echoing and reflecting what Archaix is showing. I think the video is titled "The Year Everything Changed." Well, on a personal level, the year everything changed can be with depression. Now, I did a little calculation. If you divide 138 into 792, you get 5.7. So in some ways, I feel this physical avatar's history does reflect that. And I have had 5 negative experiences, those being chronic fatigue, the strokes, and the panic attacks, the depression, and the anxiety. They're all closely related. So the depression is stripping away things. So what you would have held as important, things that had meaning to you, now you've lost the taste for them. But of course, because this is all a new experience at the time, what actually happens is the conscious lower mind cannot decode, because it hasn't learned that internal language to realize that it's actually a good thing. Things always start off in what we would perceive as the negative, and then as the things unfold, then emerges the positive. It comes back to that analogy of let the rain pass, and we've certainly had plenty of that here in the Algarve. And it just be patient and allow things to go in their natural flow, and it opens up to blue skies and sunshine like it has today on this last day of January. So if you know of anybody that has depression, I would invite you to share this video with them, because I feel it will be a great help. Because when it happens, it feels like you go through the fall of the walls of Jericho. Everything collapses around you. You hit rock bottom. This is how it feels inside. Everything now seems pointless. It's like, what am I really here for? Just to go through these motions of earning my way to end up in an urn as ashes, because it's all very much in the material. But it is the early stages of awakening, whether you consciously or subconsciously had the thought that things don't add up. We're given signs all the time, probably more signs during the day than at night, but we don't recognize them. And what actually happens is very much like the analogy I have used before. Sort of say set in the 1950s, you go round to a friend's house and you throw a little pebble at the window because they're still asleep. They don't hear that hit the glass, so you may throw a bigger and bigger stone and then a rock, and of course the glass smashes, then they do wake up. That is basically what is going on internally with depression. The body is saying stop and rest, but then it starts at what seems like a very uphill struggle to pull yourself out of that. And of course not everybody does, because it is reflected like in nature. The seed will only grow if the soil and the conditions are right for that seed to grow. Many will go further into that depressive state, but this is not for everybody. It's not about saving the world. We're just passing through this world. It is about finding that internal phoenix and rising it up within oneself. It is about learning that internal dialogue. There will come a realization at some point, and I would suggest the best way to do that is to connect with Source. It is all then shown to you. The simplest sentence to sum this up is: seek the kingdom within and all will be given to you. So the depression is a way of taking you inward for that reflection, because you spent so much time externally looking at the reflections. Now, some of those reflections are there to guide you. A lot of those reflections are showing you the opposite, like in the mirror. If you go left, what you see in the mirror goes to the right. It is showing you how not to be, what not to do. It is about being the observer from a neutral standpoint. So this latest Archaix video, where Jason talks about what is shown in the Mayan prophecies, this so-called apocalypse is actually a good thing and something to be celebrated. If you are on that high vibration, you will just know that there is nothing that is going to affect you. You get to the point where you lose all doubt, you lose all fear, and you lose all worry. That is the requirement that is needed for that fiery angel to step aside at the doorway to Eden. You could say it's when this tertiary field begins, where this photo-positive reality comes into contact with this photo-negative reality, where we have this predator versus prey play out. It will come with a different form of mathematics, and you will be able to walk through. It will be a breeze, because you are an immortal soul. You will discard this physical body to do this, but you will be given a new garment, a new raiment, and you will be given a new name as well. Death in itself is one of the big things that so many people have an irrational fear over, but it is only a doorway. It is referenced, I believe it's in the Gospel of Thomas, about when you take off the garment for the last time and you trample it under your feet. It is letting go of the physicality of this world, because the immortal soul is, as the name implies, it is singular and it is immortal. It is not subjected to the physical reality and the laws of this physical reality, because we are not from this physical reality. We are just passing through it. So the 138 and the 792, the respective Phoenix and Nemesis cycles, apply inwardly and played out externally as well. If you think about the Phoenix events, they are selective distractions. Well, the Phoenix events that you go through internally, like depression, is the selective distractions. It doesn't destroy you, and it doesn't destroy your physical body unless you allow it to pull you down into that very low vibration negative state. But if you have that realization that there is a reason, a re-sun for everything, that is why you have suns. You have to see the sun, although you can't actually see it because the seed is below ground. But inside that is a spark of life which starts things off. The conditions are always that it is in the cold, it is in the darkness, and it is from that which it grows. Within us, because we are made up of the same elements and things of this earth, the physical body follows this same pattern, that you have to go into the darkness for that seed to be sparked, what is known as the Kundalini rising, or you could call it the internal phoenix rising, the phoenix that is within inside you, where you rise from the ashes, where you come out of depression, you come out of anxiety, you overcome the perceived negativity of the challenges. Like from a personal perspective, that would be the chronic fatigue. I've had to master the equivalent of being the wise of serpents. So if I want to do 10 things in a day and I only achieve 2, I don't beat myself up over it. It's 2 less for the next day. It's learning to navigate and go with the flow. So even the chronic fatigue has been a beautiful thing, because it has shown me a new way to do things. I've gone through that frustration, the anger at oneself of, well, I used to be able to do that, why can't I do it now? That's the equivalent of holding a seance. You're trying to bring back the past, what is dead. That is the left-hand path. It is about moving up and to the right, and that is reflected in the biblical story of follow the man who carries the pitcher under the arm, which is a representation of Aquarius, but that has been changed because Aquarius used to be known as the Phoenix. So it is reflected in nature how things are starting to spring to life as we move into February. And then the sun will pass the equinox and things will begin to flourish. Part of this series of videos, as much about going to source, will also answer the question that I have pondered as, why are there so few geniuses being produced in this world today? That's not to say that there aren't, but when we compare to the past, say the 19th century, look at the geniuses that were being produced then, the likes of Isambard, King Brunel, the composer Richard Wagner, Ludwig van Beethoven, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But the pattern with those, you'll notice, it is not hereditary. It is due to the terms and conditions, but there is a win-win to this, because when a culture seems to be going towards a golden age, the geniuses in their field will arise. So in a personal field, if it was an architect, then it will be a flourishing of new invention in architecture. If it is music, it will be a composer who breaks new boundaries like Beethoven and Wagner. But also in times of the adversary, as it were, which follows the pattern of the seasons, the contrast between summer and winter. In the times of what seems to be the most darkness and the negativity, the geniuses will still emerge. Don't think that these so-called controllers of this reality are actually trying to eliminate humanity, because the pattern also emerges is they have no imagination, they have no ability to create, they can only manipulate what already is. So you'll see this reflected in the pendulum swing of red and blue politics, where things go to one extreme and then go to the other. That is to try and germinate those geniuses, because this control system needs that, because it does not have it of itself. If you look at nature, it just repeats and repeats and repeats. It goes through cycles. It goes through suns, because it is trying to seize those suns. It is trying to then get those geniuses and bring them into the various cults. It is not unknown that the composer Franz Liszt was a Jesuit. Certainly Richard Wagner tried to join, I believe it was the Freemasons, and was rejected. Because the system needs these things, but there are certain geniuses like Wagner, and the prophetic message that he gives in the Ring cycle and Parsifal, when you can decode that in its esoteric meaning, is a work of genius. It is too rich a vibration for the various cults and things to even handle. But what also comes out of this, when you go through this tunnel and you come out the other side of depression, I've come out unscathed, but I've got a very different perception on things. So referring back to what is said about the Mayan prophecies, it is something to be celebrated. It comes back to the etymology again, and it comes back to that single question: do you want to experience an apocalypse and all that goes with that? Or if you're on a higher vibration, would you rather not witness an epoch collapse, the end of a chapter, the start of a new one, again following the pattern of nature? A seed will grow, it will turn into a tree or a plant, it will flower, it will produce fruit, then it goes through a period of decay, and then eventual death, and that energy then starts again by providing the ingredients, the nutrients for the next seed to come along. It follows this time loop cycle of this reality. But we are not of this reality. We do not have to get stuck in those time loops. If we follow the way through this, and that tertiary field is going to open up soon, where you will be able to just walk this, it will be a breeze. There is nothing to fear unless you are generating that fear inside yourself. The easiest way to make a big elimination of that is to go through the disconnect to reconnect. So disconnect from all these fear stories of this is going to happen and that is going to happen. It will reflect the intensity. As you go through this spiritual awakening, you will externally be shown the most intense things. There'll be earthquakes, there'll be volcanoes, there'll be wars, there'll be tsunamis. What's new? That's always been going on. It's always being pushed in the news. It's trying to harvest a negative vibration and keep you in low vibration state. It is like that thing about the crabs in the box. If one crab tries to crawl out the box, the collective of the other crabs will try and pull them back down. No, come back into the safety, the comfort. We don't want to feel we're alone here. These so-called controllers are very much in that position. They are retarded spirits that do not wish to grow. This is their world. We're not here to change this world. We're here to just observe it and witness it and move on. We're not meant to stay here. Again, it's a pattern that is reflected in nature. It's about things always changing. But because we're in the spiritual perspective, the immortal perspective, it is always one of a continuous expansion and a continuous growth, because it is infinite. It is outside the laws of this reality. No matter how big a computer that is built, it is going to have limitations. It will reach a point where it has no capacity for more gigabytes and terabytes and things. There is a whole virtual world that may look infinite in that, but it is quite the opposite. But just contemplate that the world is external of you, is a reflection. It will show the 792 Nemesis X type destructions on the grand scale. But on the micro scale, you have the 138 internal Phoenix. From that, it will have an effect on the external in your personal field. It's not about changing the world. It's about changing your internal world, the U-Inverse, and coming to that realization of who you truly are. And from that, what you are truly capable of. This is the core, that this reality in this game, this challenge, is doing all it can to stop you finding. But if you can find it in yourself, that is the huge game changer, and you will be able to walk through this and it will be a breeze. I'm going through the motions of it all because I have to, because I'm doing this to prove to myself, the myself being the lower conscious and the physical body, from the immortal higher self perspective. But through that, I hope that I can show it to many more of you to help you, because when you go through depression, it feels very isolating, and it feels like it is only happening to you. But would you say that depression is something that only affects one person, one individual? Or is it something that affects many of you? But where does depression really start? This may shock you. It is one of your inbuilt core programs in these avatars. Cancer is also there. Whether you create the terms and conditions to activate those things is entirely down to you. But depression is certainly one that is a huge benefit. Cancer actually could be a huge benefit, because if you can overcome that, which is quite easy to do just by breathing, you emerge stronger for it. On a little side note to this, having a stroke, that is the body telling on the mind. Generally, if you are paralyzed down the left side of the body following a stroke, it is basically telling you to move to the other side, take the right-hand path. It is about disconnecting all those neural pathways, letting go of the past, which is represented by the left side of the body, and then being able to formulate those new neural pathways which will give you the full mobility back. This has been done, and you have all the necessary things inside you to do this, but only you can do it for yourself, and it all depends on what you're generating from your mind, whether it's coming from the higher mind or the lower mind, whether you are in fear state or you are in a higher vibration. That is going to be the thing that determines, and it will be of your own doing, whether you are going to experience an apocalypse and have that in your field, or whether you are going to just witness an epoch collapse and be able to walk away from it all. So as always, unconditional love to you all. I will put some links in the description to the two Archaix presentations I've mentioned, because I feel that will be an enormous benefit to come to this understanding of the importance of the 138 and the 792, not just in the external, but how it affects you internally, and that realization that you do have a phoenix inside you. You can see it as a weapon of destruction, but what it is destroying? It is destroying all the negative things inside you and freeing you up to find the positive counterparts, to basically fill what would seem like a void when something is taken away from you. You can then replace it using intuition, imagination, empathy, and humor. Is it coincidence that when we knock our elbow, it's called the funny bone, or is it the humerus or the humerus? Why is it that word? It's just another little hint, but of course we're trained to see and hear words in particular ways. So the apocalypse is just purely from the perspective of those that are on the left side, that are part of the past, that will fall away. So how does that sound? How does that grab you? Does that give you a positive lift? That is the intention of this video, to help you raise your vibration. But the easiest way to do it is, as I've suggested in previous videos, like disconnect to reconnect. You have to reset yourself inside. You have to go through a phoenix reset. That is what depression is really about. I'll talk about anxiety and I'll talk about panic attacks, because they are related to this in future videos. We are going to go deeper, and I'm going to be explaining more about all these negative perceived things are actually blessings in disguise, because we are in a photo-negative reality. So the easiest analogy is to look at the photo-positive, which is the photograph, and observe the colours in that. Now compare it with the photo-negative, the negative of that photograph, and you'll see that red and green flip over, blue and yellow flip over, the light and the dark swap places as well, because it is the negative. But there is the positive to be found from that negative. You can develop a positive from a negative and have a photograph. That is something reflected in this material world. So we've hit 30 minutes, so I'm going to say unconditional love to you all. Personalized 7-card tarot readings are back on the table for anybody that would like to see where they're at the moment, because it's about finding out where you are as much as anything else. Those cards and what I can read from the artwork in the cards may actually be of benefit to you, to give you your coordinates, shall we say. That is another word that I feel needs breaking down in its etymology in maybe the next video. But until then, as always, unconditional love to you all.